So if you are joining us now or watching this later on YouTube, I'm Justin Bernstein. I'm a professor here at UCLA School of Law and the Director of Trial Advocacy. Before we go any further, I want to turn it over to our Dean, Michael Waterstone, who's kindly joining us to introduce the program and talk about our work here at the law school. Dean?
Sure. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. It is wonderful to be with all of you. I think I'll just start off by saying I just think it's a phenomenally exciting time to consider law school generally. I think it's such an important time to go. I think, whatever challenges or opportunities we face as a society, law is a fulcrum lever towards progress of all types. So I just think it's a great time to consider going to law school. But we're here today to talk about UCLA law and trial advocacy. I've been in legal education and around law schools for a long time, and I think it's fair to say we are uniquely committed to trial advocacy and do amazing work here. Something that we absolutely consider applicants who participated in college mock trial, and that's part of how we build these kind of powerhouse teams, is looking for that as something we're looking for in the application process. We definitely have scholarships exclusively for students who did college mock trial. That is a demonstration of our commitment in this area. And as you just heard Justin and I talking about, we only hang banners. We have the absolute best trial advocacy program and mock trial team in the country. When I came on board last year and Justin and I were talking, I was talking about, oh yeah, it's kind of like I grew up, a Lakers fan in the 80s where they won every other year. And we kind of decided, yeah, it's kind of like, but if the Lakers were playing each other every year and, we kept winning. I mean, it's just extraordinary amount of success. We invest so much in this program, and delighted that you are all considering us. So with that, Justin, I think I'll pop off unless there's anything else you'd like me to chat about. I know you guys have important work to get to.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, Dean. So again, I'm Justin Bernstein. I'm the Director of Trial Ad here. I'm joined by our 3L president and our 2L president. I'll ask our 3L president, Rachel, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I am the 3L president of the team, and I competed in AMPTA for Pomona College from 2016 to 2020.
Maddie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie. I am the 2L president of the team, and I competed in AMPTA for UC Santa Barbara from 2019 to 2022.
It's October 21st, 2024. Maddie, when was the last time you won a national championship?
Almost to the minute, 24 hours ago.
That's pretty good. So like I said before we started, I'm going to do a presentation, put a PowerPoint on the screen. We'll pause after each part, take questions. And at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern, I'll pause because we have an alum, Sydney Gaskins, joining to talk about what she's up to and how the program has helped her. So I'll get started by sharing my screen. Maddie, Rachel, can you see it okay? Awesome. So our program is the Capello Program in Trial Advocacy. Barry Capello is a longtime alum and supporter of the program. He created this program, and you see the team last year with our sweatshirts in the ceremonial courtroom. This is the same courtroom where we had the trial by combat finals and some national final rounds. We're going to be talking about four things. Classes here at the law school, our trial team, that is our mock trial team, the jobs that are available to our trial team students, and the scholarships that are available for those interested in trial advocacy. So I'll start with the classes. And we have more classes in trial advocacy than any of our peer law schools, period, the end. We have trial advocacy, which is an introductory class, advanced trial advocacy, and advanced criminal trial ad. The first is more technique-based. The other is substantive, focused on your actual work you'll be doing as a prosecutor or defense attorney, taught by a longtime criminal practitioner. It's like watching an episode of The Wire. You're learning how to use wiretap evidence, how to cross-examine police informants, how to challenge searches and seizures or defend them if you're on the government side. Our advanced trial prep class is for people who are on the team, and you're getting new competitions every 2 weeks on Zoom, and you're either competing or you're helping others prep. Our trial practice class, you're getting credit for being on the trial team. Evidence, of course, is the class you take for the bar, where you're learning the same rules you learn in AMPTA, but in greater depth. Advanced evidence applies that in the courtroom. And I think we're the only school where you can get course credit for writing a mock trial case. Rachel last year wrote a case for one of our competitions and got course credit for it. And some of our recent alums helped write the AMPTA Nationals case 2 years ago and they got credit for that. We may be doing that again soon. So that'll be the first place I pause. What questions people have about the classes before we talk about the trial team? Any questions on classes? Yeah, Benson. And you're welcome to join us on screen. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that like some classes are for like advanced trial ad was for team members. Are there any classes that are like, are those only for team members? Like you have to be a member of the team in order to take it?
So advanced trial ads for everybody. It's advanced trial preparation. That's just for students on the team. Of the 7 classes I just showed you on screen, 5 of them are open to anybody.
Okay. And this is going to be, I think, more related to the team competition, but a big like one of my favorite parts, at least of undergrad mock trial so far, is the sort of looking through the legal rulings of what happened pre-trial. Is there a lot more of that in the law? Because you mentioned how there is some of that that occurs in classes. Does that also occur on the team? As a member of the competition team, is there a lot more pre-trial work that is involved?
Like infinitely more. I mean, for example, in college, you can't make any pretrial motions, right? But in
Yeah.
law school, you can bring a motion in limine and seek to exclude an entire part of somebody's testimony or exclude exhibits or pre-admit exhibits. And that's all legal argument that doesn't exist at the college level. In some competitions, you can use outside case law. So it really depends. But I'll talk more about the trial team stuff, but absolutely, it's more substantive at the law school level. Yeah, Anthony, do you have a question about the classes?
Yes, when it comes to the classes that involve like writing case materials or writing cases in general, like could you talk more about that process? Like, for example, do these students who are writing these cases, do they know that their case would actually go to some sort of tournament or some sort of trial?
Yeah. So here's how it works. It's basically an independent study course where you say, hey, Justin, I want to write a case with you, or I want to write a case with this group for a competition we got coming up. And so, for example, 2 years ago, we were hosting the verdict, a jury trial competition where we had lay jurors coming in, and we had 3 folks working on that case. And then we also had a case for new students called the Premier, and Rachel worked on that case. And so they got course credit. We met outside of class and we brainstorm it. Rachel, you want to talk about your experience writing a case?
Yeah, I worked with one of our other team members to write a case based on the Alec Baldwin Rust shooting. Yeah, that was the name of it. I paused because we mock trial jokesters called our version Dust. And we wrote the script and made a great joke at the end that they should eat my dust. So it was a lot of fun to kind of see the back end of the process and reverse engineer objections and statements and think about how, this language could lend itself to different theories and themes. So it was a great experience.
How long of a process do you think that took you?
We worked on it throughout the summer. It was, I mean, it takes a lot of effort to kind of think of both what you want to say and how other people might run with it, and plan for all the contingencies because we want people to have different theories and opportunities to argue it. But it certainly wasn't like overwhelming or crushing. We had a great time, so it was great.
Cool. Other questions about classes? All right, I'll share my screen again. I'll talk about our trial team. I think that's what a lot of people want to hear about. So I'll start with an overview of our program. We've got about 25 to 35 students on the team at any given time. Our coaches are amazing. We have this semester, I know it says on screen coach ratio to students of 2 to 1, but as I think about it, that's not right. It's much better than that, actually, shockingly. So we have 26 students in the program this semester and 22 coaches. And some students are going to multiple competitions, but we're still going to have a better ratio than 2 to 1. And these coaches are unbelievable. More than half of them are national champions at the college or law school level. I think a third of them, or more than a third of them, are former All-Americans. They're all practicing lawyers. And of the 22 folks who are coaching this semester, 19 of them are alums. And some of them going back several years, some of them more recent. but it speaks to the continuity of the program and the kind of one-on-one attention you're going to get because we have small teams and tons of coaches. If you're like me and came from a student-run program without a lot of funding in college, I competed for UC Berkeley when we were just starting out. You're used to paying out of pocket or scrimping and saving. Maddie, I'm sure that you felt like that at UCSB, but the program here is fully funded, so you will not pay $1 for travel or for hotels or Airbnbs or even food when you travel. Last night we had a nice celebratory meal after Tournament of Champions. Maddie ate pretty well. I footed the bill. And the demos, I mean, it's nice being in a situation where it's all covered. We get invited to the top events. I think one thing that's different than at a lot of college programs, we have a really great culture. It's hard to sort of prove that because it's qualitative, but I'll give you one way to quantify it. Our retention rate year over year, people who decide to come back after their 2L year for their 3L year, is just under 100%. It's over 97%, I know at least, maybe even 99%. We almost never have somebody who chooses not to return after their 2L year. So it's a program that people want to be part of. But I'll pause there. And Manny and Rachel, do you want to talk about the culture of the program before I talk about where we travel and how we do?
Yeah, I can jump in. As somebody who's newer to the team, and this is my first semester competing as a member of the team. It has been so fun. Like, what was it? Like a few weeks ago, we did a karaoke night and we literally like rented out like our own karaoke, and it was just so fun. Like you didn't have to fight anyone else to get on the stage. And what I really liked that I think was Rachel and Eddie, I think it was both of your ideas, but what they did is they would draw a name of like from all the 3Ls, draw one of them, and then draw a name out of a bowl of all the 2Ls and one of them. And then you two like had to go up and like do a song together. And I think it's silly, but I think that really speaks to like how much effort is really put into not just being good teammates, but also creating good friendships. And that's always been really important to me since college mock trial, and something that I really knew I wanted in a team in law school mock trial as well. And I've certainly been able to find it.
Rachel?
Yeah, I think exactly what Maddie said, and adding on to that last point, in college, there's so many different extracurricular clubs, like Greek life, sports teams. And in law school, there's like notably less. And I think it student organizations don't always prioritize like the community element of the organization. Obviously, law school is more of like a trade school, and so people are preparing for their careers, and that's a huge focus for a lot of organizations. And so I think at least our trial team really values that community, and we bake it into everything that we do, and making sure that all the team members are bonding and having fun and really get to know each other and have a positive experience. And I've found the culture to be just so wonderfully collaborative, supportive, fun, like kind. And it's the kind of environment that I thrive in. So I've had a fantastic time. And I think a lot of it is due to like fantastic Professor Bernstein really setting the example and the tone that these are the kind of values that we uphold in this program. And that's how we run it. So
I think one reason it's just a healthier environment than in a lot of college programs is sort of the structure of law school mock trial. We're not all going to the same tournaments. So Rachel and Maddie are not competing against each other. There's no like, oh, I'm on A, I'm closing or I'm middle. There are no middle attorneys. Everybody's going to good events. Everybody's got great coaches, and you're not competing with each other. Literally, the only time our teams could ever compete, there's two tournaments that allow two teams from the same school, and they can't even meet until the national final round, at which point it's a party. So I'll give you an example literally from yesterday. We had two teams competing, one at the Tournament of Champions here in Los Angeles, and the other at the UC Davis MLK Civil Rights Competition up in Sacramento. And they both made the final round. And that day, as they went through the semis and the finals, I kept getting a call from the coaches and students up in Northern California saying, okay, we're doing well, but how's our team doing at TOC? And the moment that Maddie's team walked out of the courtroom after TOC, we were waiting to get our results, she and her teammates said, how is the MLK doing up in Sacramento? And I think it speaks to the way the program feels about each other. They're not rivals. People are rooting for each other. let me talk about where we get to travel. And it's not just in California, like I mentioned, but these are the places the team has traveled just in the last, I think, 12, 13 months. And as I'm looking at it now, I realize San Diego should also be on there. But you can see up and down the coast in the big cities in California, Vegas, Denver, Houston, Miami, DC, New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago. Again, that's just the last year or so. So you get to go all over. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with the results we've been fortunate enough to have. This will be the 6th year in a row that UCLA ranks #1 nationally. And as crazy as that is to say our trial team is ranked #1, that is an understatement, if you can believe it, because the dominance that our students have shown and our coaches have shown over the last 6 years is really unprecedented. It's hard to sort of capture it, but I'll give you 2 examples. The oldest law school competition in the country is the National Trial Competition. It's older than any AMTA event or high school event. It's celebrating its 50th year this year. And until recently, no school had ever won more than 2 in a row. UCLA has now won 4 in a row. But I think even more impressive than that, the last 3 years, the final round for that competition has been UCLA versus UCLA. We had 2 teams out of 320, and all 3 of the last 3 years, the last 2 standing were UCLA teams. So these are final round photos of both teams in each final, and it's just our students. And I'm incredibly proud of the way they played in those finals. And I think they put on clinics of how to do this. The other thing I'll show you to sort of summarize where the program stands is the national rankings. So in college, you've got the TPR, the team performance rankings, or team power rankings, excuse me. And those tell you how many points they've earned over the last 3 years. Law school is similar. So Fordham puts out the trial competition performance rankings, and you accrue points based on how well you do at events, certain number of points for winning, second place, etc. And this is every American law school in alphabetical order, except I don't have UCLA on here. That's UCLA. And I'm not cherry picking. There's 3 different rankings, and you can see where we are on all 3 of them. We've had individual students who've earned more points than the second place law school in some years. So what our students are doing is really extraordinary competitively. But what I want to emphasize about the trial team's success before we open up to questions, 2 things. Number one, I think sometimes people see people like Maddie Whalen or Sydney Gaskins or Audrey Shepard or Regina Campbell, recent AMTA stars who've come here and done really well, and think, you've got to be an All-American to be here. You have to go to trial by combat to be here. That's not true. Last year, we had a student win Top Gun. That is the one-on-one law school national championship. It's what trial by combat's based on. One student out of thousands gets to win that event. Check for $10,000. It's the big one. And the student who won, Peter Jones, was an AMTA alum who'd never gotten to compete at AMTA Nationals. And he's great. But we're not just looking for the Maddies who've already been nationally recognized. We're also looking for the Peters who have the talent, have the drive, like I'm sure a lot of you do, who just need the resources and the opportunity. The other thing I want to emphasize is it's not just about the trophies. Of course, we love winning, but this is a law school. My job and my goal is to make sure that when you leave here, you're ready to try cases. I'm going to give you some examples. 2 former students joining the U.S. Attorney's Office in LA as federal prosecutors, former teammates who are now literally 4 doors down from each other in the criminal division. A student who dreamed of being a trial attorney, public defender, getting her dream job in the Bay Area, another getting her dream job as a trial attorney in Los Angeles, and another former student who won an $11 million plaintiff's verdict. And to give you an idea of the kind of success, I'm not just talking broadly, those happened last week. So our students are doing really, really well professionally as a result of this, because the skills that you need to win competitions at that level, I mean, we literally have more national championships this decade than every other law school combined. And to do that, it's not gimmicks. It's not just getting loud and getting soft and knowing how to do gestures. It's understanding trial work at a level that you won't get anywhere else. So before I talk about jobs, I'm going to pause there and see if people have questions about our trial team. Shay. And everybody's welcome to turn on their screens or raise their hand, whatever you want. Shay, how are you?
Hi, doing well. I just wanted to ask about the tryout process and the success of people who try out. So, out of all of the people who try out, about what percentage actually make it onto the team, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. I'd say that in a given year, we have about 50 tryouts and about 15 new members. And I can tell you a little about the tryout process. We are looking for the same things I'm sure you're all looking for when you're doing auditions at your colleges. We're looking for people who are great at public speaking, critical thinking, good on their feet, confident, ambitious, people who are also going to be fun to hang out with because competition's stressful. The hours are long, right? It's intense. And if you're going to be traveling across the country with somebody, you want to make sure it's somebody you're going to get along with. And so I want to make sure that people have the same kind of goals in that regard. Our process changes slightly year to year, but it's pretty much the same. We do a first round interview where people are doing a speech, either an opening or closing, and then a really short cross examination and calling it an interview is probably more formal than it is just a conversation about what they're looking for and answering questions they have. But that's our tryout process. Caitlin,
Hi, how are you?
great. How are you doing?
I'm great. Okay, so this question actually might have to do a bit more with your next section. I just had a quick question. When you mentioned that individual who was successful in the Bay Area, so I'm all the way from Florida. So I was just curious. I know that your program is nationally renowned, but how do you think that works towards jobs and positions in Florida as well? Like, have you had individuals who've been successful, like, all the way across the nation?
Caitlin, tell me if this is fair. How about I give you a short answer now and a longer answer when we get to jobs? Is that a deal?
That sounds great.
The answer is if you want to go to a national law school, the reason to do it, to go to a UCLA or a Chicago or a Berkeley or a Duke, is because the name travels. And if you want to be in LA, obviously great to come to UCLA. But if you want to work in New York or Miami or Boston or Chicago, the name travels there too. In fact, I have more students in New York than I do in San Francisco right now.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. Dara,
Hi, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the Capello Certificate in Trial Advocacy.
sure. So the Capella Certificate in Trial Advocacy is different than scholarship. It's something you can earn while you're here as something you can put on your resume to demonstrate that you've really been interested in this. It's a series of classes you got to take and a certain number of either external competitions, mock trial competitions, or internal events or externships. And if you check off enough of those boxes, you get the certificate when you graduate. The truthful answer is if you're on the team, you sort of end up getting all the requirements without even realizing it. Like Rachel, for example, probably doesn't realize, but I think she's already qualified for the certificate just by being on the team and going to a bunch of events. So it's really even more useful if somebody isn't on the team and they want to demonstrate their interest. And so it's a guide of all the classes you got to take and other things you can do to demonstrate to employers that this is a skill you've developed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Benson.
Yeah, I kind of have two questions. First, so about the tryout process, how much does your success or participation in AMTA on your college team impact your chances? Because you said you have 50 tryouts and 15 new members each year, right?
Yeah.
So how much does either your performance or participation in college mock trial impact that? And I forgot my second question, but that's my main question.
Yeah, why don't we start there? I think that it's a tricky question to answer because I don't think it's a formal requirement by any means. I guess I'll start with this. Every year we take students who've never done this before. So obviously it doesn't apply to anybody listening because this is exclusively for AMPA students that we're talking to right now. But not only do we not require people to have extraordinary undergraduate success to be on the team, we don't require people to have AMPA experience to be on the team. That being said, it's not that we're looking for it as a requirement, but people who've done it often have an advantage in tryouts. So people who are part of the Zoom, people who are watching this on YouTube later, just by virtue of what you've already done, you're ahead of the curve. So our students with previous experience make the team at a much higher rate than the 30% I just outlined.
Makes sense.
Did you have a second question, Benson, or should you want to think about it and I come back to you?
I can't think of it right now.
No problem. Nishad, I can't hear you. Do you want to start over? Mm-mm. You can also type it in the chat and I'll come back to you. Let me answer a couple questions in the chat. Uh, this question was, are 1Ls allowed to participate in the program? So the answer is yes, in a very limited way. And I'll give you a quick sort of overview of how law schools in the United States handle this. The law schools that are most committed to trial advocacy tend to be most restrictive of who can compete because they're more intense about it. And so most law schools with dedicated trial programs, particularly full-time directors, are going to limit participation to 2Ls and 3Ls. Schools that are less focused on it, where it's probably a student-run organization, it's a club, they'll let anybody compete, including 1Ls. And we're sort of in the middle. I think it's really important that people focus on grades their first year, and your first semester grades are probably your most important grades in law school. So I don't allow anybody to compete on the team their first semester. However, if somebody has amped experience, if they already have a comfort in the courtroom, and they want to join as a second semester student in their 1L year, they're welcome to. I mean, I think Rachel and Maddie, you both competed the second semester of your 1L year, but we've tried to make sure it's a local event. It's not super intense. It's middle of the semester. Bottom line is it's a way for them to do something fun without sort of jeopardizing grades. Your first semester, though, there's two things you can do. One is if you want to scrimmage our teams, that way they can get to know you. We can get to know you as a competitor. You can get to know the team. That's great. We're happy to have you do that. And we had some recent AMPTA alums scrimmage our team for Tournament of Champions just 2 weeks ago. The other thing you can do is we have an internal trial competition. It's open to anybody at the law school who isn't already on the team. And that's a pretty cool event because not only is it an opportunity to perform, to put something on your resume, our top 4 1Ls get automatic callbacks to a fancy law firm, actually the firm with the most litigation spots in the entire world across the globe. And so automatic callbacks at that spot. But I'm going to pause the questions there for just a moment because, as I promised, at 6 o'clock, Sydney was going to join. Sydney, do you want to join us on screen? Hey, Sid.
Hello.
So Sydney Gaskins is a former college competitor from UMBC, former All-American and national champion. And I was so glad that she came to UCLA. She just graduated a few months ago. She took the bar, and she's giving us some time today before she goes on, enjoys her last days of freedom before she starts her law firm job. But I'll just ask you the open-ended question. Sydney, what can you tell everybody about your law school experience at UCLA and about the trial program?
My law school experience at UCLA was quite literally so much fun. And I think that there's not a lot of other law schools you could go to where you would have such a good experience. Like the weather in LA is perfect. I was going to the beach all the time. All of my classmates were so nice. I made so many friends. I was in BOLSA, the Black Law Students Association, through that and trial team. And then I got the opportunity to go to the best tournaments with the best competitors in the country as my co-counsel. And honestly, I now miss it. Now that I'm about to start work, I see like Maddie and Rachel in law school, and I'm like, that'd be kind of fun to do just another day of being a student. So I couldn't say better things about UCLA. You should go to UCLA if you have the opportunity. It was the best decision of my life.
And we now got to coach together. So when she graduated a few months ago, I asked her if she wanted to coach. And so not only she coached in this fall, we got to coach the Tournament of Champions team together. And she was amazing. So hopefully if you come to UCLA, you get to work with Sydney. So do you want to talk a little bit about how things change for you as a competitor from college to law school?
Yes. So college is a lot different than law school in the sense that it's a lot more rogue. It's a little bit more theatrical. You can kind of do a lot more with running crazy theories and having wild witnesses. And then in law school, you kind of peel all of that back and you're just supposed to be a true lawyer and a true advocate. So I think it took a little bit of adjusting. But Justin is the best coach in the country. Everybody knows this. And so if you have the opportunity to work with him, you in the 3 years, you will become a competitor that you don't even recognize. Like Justin talked about how I won the national championship in college. And then I look back on that and I'm like, I can't, like, I don't even know who that competitor is anymore because you just change so much and become so much better. But I think in some ways, like law school mock is a little bit more challenging as well. Like, I think it's just a different level. It's just the next level up.
Where are you working?
I'm working at a big law firm called Morrison Forrester in downtown Los Angeles.
How'd you get the job?
I got the job through a diversity scholarship 1L position, which I was very fortunate to get. So I've been working at the same firm my whole time pretty much in law school. But I will say through trial team, and like I would go to competitions, and then like after the round, there would be judges coming up to me and being like, hey, do you want to work for me like at a plaintiff's firm? And I have like a mentor now from another firm who had offered me a job, and I had to say no because I had the Morrison Forrester job. So I think a kind of a unexpected benefit is that through these competitions, you will make so many networking connections, and you could be like get a trial work job just from doing the competition.
Yeah, I think people sort of laugh in undergrad when the lawyers are always saying, oh, you're better than the lawyers I see every day. And it's true, except in law school, they can say, you're better than the lawyers I work with, the lawyers I see every day. I want to hire you.
Yeah.
Literally every semester I've been here, I've had at least one student get a job offer at a competition. Sometimes it's Sydney getting multiple in the same day. But I know that your time is precious, especially in your last days of vacation. So if you want to share one other thing, that'd be great. But thank you for joining us, Sid.
Yes, thank you for having me. And if anybody wants to reach out to talk more, please feel free to contact me in any way. Just ask Justin for my information.
Thanks, Sydney.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so before I go back to the slides, I see one question in the chat. Do team members play both attorneys and witnesses? At most competitions, yes. For example, Maddie was competing this weekend. She was the defense closer on one side, and she was the accident reconstructionist on the other side. Maddie, what was your expert conclusion?
My expert conclusion is that these concrete pillars called bollards, they have a name, they would have prevented a car from driving into a store if they were outside the store.
She learned some physics.
I did. Basic physics equations, but you'd be surprised. People messed them up.
But Rachel's going to a competition in a few weeks in New York where there won't be any, where neither you nor your teammate is going to play a witness. Do you want to explain?
Yes, I'll be going to Kelly competition in New York where the team is just me and another AMPTA alum, Abby Branham, who some of you might know, who competed for Florida State. And we will be the opener and closer on both the prosecution and the defense. So on one side, Abby is the opener, I'm the closer, and then vice versa. And all of our witnesses are the Fordham Law School trial team members who are not competing, who we will get 15 minutes to prepare before the trial begins. So we'll get 15 minutes to tell them about our direct and what our theme is and hope that they remember their testimony.
Yeah. So most competitions are like the one Maddie just described where we play our own witnesses, but maybe about 1 in 5 are like the one that Rachel described where the witnesses are provided. Any other questions about the team before we talk about jobs? Cool. So I'll start with this. Even if you're not on the trial team here, UCLA law students have really incredible job opportunities. And I'll pick one stat that I think is useful to sort of highlight it. I went on the websites today for Harvard and UCLA. The most recent full set of employment data is from 2023. The median salary at Harvard Law School is an amazing $215,000. In other words, for students who graduated in 2023 from Harvard Law, the average student was making as a starting salary 215 grand. That's unbelievable. At UCLA, the number was identical. And if you look at the websites of other top law schools, you're going to see something similar, if not identical. The bottom line is, if you're going to any of those top schools, you're going to be getting the same types of job opportunities. The students here are getting the type of jobs that they want to be doing, whether that's working at fancy law firms and making a ton of money, applying for top clerkships, working as a public defender or a prosecutor, going to a plaintiff's firm, doing something small or boutique litigation spot. I'll pause there and let Maddie and Rachel talk about their opportunities before I talk about the trial team as a whole. So we'll start with Rachel, our 3L. Rachel, where are you going when you graduate?
I will be going to Quinn Emanuel, which is a big law firm that exclusively does trial work.
It's probably the largest firm that does a heavy amount of trial work in the world. And you had to choose between two different offices. Am I remembering right?
Yes, that's
Which,
right.
Which offices?
I was choosing between Morrison and Foerster and Quinn, and then with Quinn, they have like work from anywhere, but San Francisco or Los Angeles.
I thought you were also looking internationally.
I was also looking internationally, and I got into the final round for Tokyo, even though I don't speak Japanese. So that was cool.
So how'd you end up getting that job?
So before I even applied to Quinn through like the UCLA formal process of applying to these big law firms, I'd already spoken to multiple trial team members who were at Quinn, and they were basically like vouching for me internally and who were recommending me to the like job committee as a candidate that they wanted at the firm. And I think that went a long way. Then in my first interview, it was with two people at Quinn, one of whom was a UCLA trial team member. So the interview was very smooth and just an absolute delight. And then
that Michaela Delaney? Who
that was Michaela, yes. And then once I got there this summer, the firm held a mock trial week where we prepared a case and we were the advocates. And I think I really got to showcase my trial advocacy skills that I've built here at UCLA, and show off to the co-managing partner of the LA office, of our main office, who was my presiding judge. And at the end, he notably said, like, Rachel, you're so prepared. I'll give you a direct in one of my trials when you come and start at Quinn. And so I think that was just really a special moment for me to know that they recognize the trial skills. And I got an offer like shortly after that to return to the firm, and I'll be going back. And I chalk it up to the trial ad connections and the trial ad skills.
Well, I'll put that in perspective, because when Rachel says that the managing partner is going to give her a direct examination when she starts, at most firms of that size, you will never get to try a case ever. And if you do get to go to trial, you're probably going to be in the back of the room taking notes or working on, research. They don't usually let anybody than the partner stand up and say something in court at a firm like that. So, Rachel, you're a rock star. Maddie, where are you working next summer? Or this coming summer?
I am working at a big law firm called Wilmer Hale in their Palo Alto office.
And how did you get the job?
I got the job through just reaching out to different UCLA alums. So it was May, right after I finished finals for my 1L year. And I had a meeting with my career counselor, and she was basically like, start researching what firms you might want to go to. And I knew nothing about it. Like, no one in my immediate family was a lawyer, and they all just kind of like sounded like names to me. And so I started doing like some initial research. But she recommended reaching out to alum. And so I would just look up people at the firm and the locations I wanted in the litigation department, or if they had a specific trial department in the trial department, and ask to talk to them. And some of them ended up being trial team alums, and some were just in general UCLA law alums. But I had I wouldn't even call it an interview. Like, I had a conversation with them to learn more about their firm. And most of them ended in them saying, come back for a formal callback interview. But I really credit what was so helpful about that is I called Justin, because I, again, did not know what was going on. And I didn't know what to expect. And it wasn't really like a formal process. It was more just like a conversation. And Justin both took the time to really understand what I was looking for, and also cater that to giving me advice on like what questions to ask and what would get me the actual information that would be helpful to learn, and not just like the information they're going to tell everyone because they're trying to market their firm. So that was really, really, really helpful. I was choosing between 3 firms, but I ended up going with Wilmer Hale because they partner in the Palo Alto office with the federal public defender. And one of the senior associates told me that if I wanted to work on a trial through that program, he would have a case ready for me on day 1 of my summer internship. So that is what got me there.
2 things. You called it an internship, but you're
Sorry.
going to be paid like a full-time lawyer.
Yes.
The other thing, and I'll ask a leading question that I shouldn't underwrite examination, but I believe you told me you had a pretty impressive percentage of firms that you interviewed with that gave you offers. What was that number?
It was 100%.
It's pretty good. So I'll pause there if you have any questions for Rachel or Maddie about getting jobs and that experience before I talk more generally about how it works with careers and jobs at the trial program. So any questions for Maddie or Rachel? Yeah, Brian.
Hi, Maddie. Hi, Rachel. Thank you both for coming here today and helping out with this session. Coincidentally, I think my first ever amped round was actually against Maddie's UC Santa Barbara team at UCLA in 2020. So I think you may have asked a very argumentative question on cross. That's all I remember. But I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about how you were able to market the experience you had in mock trial, both at the law school level and possibly even the extensive experience at the college level, to firms when you were interviewing and applying for them, and how effective you think that actual experience was in helping you land the positions you were able to.
Maddie, you want to take this one?
Sure. So kind of combining them, I really see 3 main ways that doing mock trial both in college and now in law school have really, really helped me just with law school in general and with finding jobs. The first is when it comes to like law school exams. You just like have such a more natural approach to these exams than someone who's never done mock trial in their lives, because basically every exam is like you're given a fact pattern and you have to apply the law to it and argue for both sides. And that is a lot of what you're doing in undergraduate mock trial. You're developing your P side, you're developing your D side, and you're all working together and applying the facts to the law. And so I really felt so lucky that I had mock trial experience going into law school exams, because I was just a lot less nervous and found them a lot less intimidating. I think it also helped for getting jobs. A lot of people just like, if people knew what mock trial was or saw mock trial accomplishments on my resume, like they always asked me about that first. It was always the first thing in every interview that everyone asked me about. And it was definitely where I had the most to talk about as well. And so I think it helps you both with having something stand out in your resume, but also the skills in like talking to people and learning how to engage people. Really, really, really helpful. And then the last one will just be and this is kind of a recent development for me, but in just allowing me to see what the law looks like in practice. Because I think a lot of law school is just very theoretical. Here's the law. And like sometimes you get hypos and fact patterns. But this semester, I feel like I have learned so much more than my 1L year in its entirety, because I've actually gotten to like put things into practice and get real lawyers' feedback on like an activity where we're not just doing this purely for fun now, like in undergrad. We are doing it to actually learn how to be a practicing lawyer. And so that's been really helpful as well.
Great answer. Benson, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah. One thing that I hear a lot from coaches and other students when starting out in AMTA and in college is that a lot of mock trial is more performance based. So I guess this is sort of linked to my previous question. In terms of like practicing for a lot of the legal argumentation skills and the sort of the legal skills, I guess. Does the trial team provide a lot like more of that than does a trial team provide a lot of that in terms of practice and teaching you how to do that versus especially compared to college mock trial?
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to say that we ignore the performance aspect. I am comfortable saying that we are known for being really strong in performance, and we certainly spend time there. But we usually do that toward the end of our preparation. The focus is on the substance because we're being judged by real lawyers, mostly trial lawyers. And they want to know if you can really try the case. They want to know if you really know the rules of evidence. Your theory has to work. In college, if it's fun and interesting and different, cool. In law school, you have to prove your case or knock down the other side's case. And you don't know what objections are coming. And the world of objections is so much more vast in law school because you can bring motions limine, you can bring mid-trial motions to dismiss, you can try to exclude an entire expert from testifying uh, in ways that you just don't have happen at the collegiate level. So it's a much more realistic experience in terms of the skills and techniques you're learning. I mean, I'll brag about Maddie. She and I have been working together for the last few months, and she has improved every week. I don't mean every competition. She's gotten better every week. And she's doing stuff in the courtroom that she didn't know how to do 2 months ago. Not that she didn't have the talent, but now she can substantively do so much more. And that's pretty awesome. I cannot wait to see how good she's going to be next semester. But the point is, yes, the answer is yes. You're going to get much more substantive depth in a law school competition. Other questions about the job experience for Maddie and Rachel before I talk a little more generally about it? Benson, do you have another question? Okay. All right, so let's talk about some additional job stuff. I mentioned this earlier with a great question we got about other markets, but one thing that's great about going to a national law school is it has a national reach. And I would love to tell you that if you want to work in LA, you got to come to UCLA. And of course, it certainly doesn't hurt. But the truth is, the value of going to a national law school is the fact that it can place you anywhere. And I don't know of any market in the country that isn't going to be accessible to our UCLA students. I get more and more students from Midlands, so to speak, who want to come here for law school and then go back home. And whether they want to go back to the South or Texas or the Midwest or New York or Boston or DC, they're getting those jobs. I'll be more specific. I cannot think of a trial team student who wanted to be in a particular city who did not get a job in that city. I don't mean this year. I'm saying since I've been at UCLA in 2018, I hope I'm not missing one, but I literally can't think of any student who didn't get a job in the city they wanted. Seattle, San Diego, San Francisco, LA, Texas, Boston, DC, New York, and I can keep going. Those jobs are available to our students, and they're the good jobs. The next thing I want to say is that our trial team students do especially well because they start off with the UCLA name on their resume, but now we have an alumni network. I started here in 2018, and our trial team was really small. It's now more than tripled in size. And it's not just they're doing favors for each other, but they know what it means to be part of this team. They know what the expectation is and how hard people work and how good they have to be. So when they see somebody applying and it says they're a Capello scholar or they're a Capello team member, even if they haven't met Rachel, they know she's going to be good because you don't get a spot on the team unless you're good. And you don't keep that spot unless you're working really hard. So when our alums see those names, they want to hire them and they want to get credit for hiring those great students. So not only are our students getting jobs through the alums, it's getting better and better every year as we have more and more alums. And the last thing is it's my priority. When I coached college mock trial, I coached at NYU and I coached at Irvine. My goal was just to make sure the students were competitively successful. And I still want them to be successful in the courtroom. But I really consider it my obligation if they come here for mock trial, if they come here for trial advocacy, if they come here to work with me or be part of the program, I want them to get the job that they want. If all they do is come and get the trophies we put on the shelves, I have failed. And so I'll be specific. If a student wants to work at a big firm or do trial work, I will do a mock interview with anybody who wants. I used to be on hiring committees at big firms, and I know the kinds of questions they ask and what they're looking for. And I will give you the hardest interview you have. I don't mean like hard questions, but I'll give you really detailed critical feedback about how to improve your interview skills. I think I did some mock interviews with you too, right? And I'll make sure that everybody feels ready for their jobs, for their interviews. If for some reason you go through the early interview process and you don't end up getting a job, I will work with you to help you find one, reaching out to other alums, helping you brainstorm, cold calling employers, uh, whatever it takes. I mean, our job placement rate is nearly 100% at graduation for our trial team members. And I'm really proud of that. But it's also something that I will promise to anybody who's listening. If you come here to be part of this program and you are part of this program, that is part of my job to make sure you get a job.
Can I add something, Justin?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I just want to say that I cannot emphasize enough like how true everything Justin is saying is, and not just for when you're trying to get like your 2L summer job, but also your 1L summer job. I remember calling Justin because I was deciding about whether to like take a random job in DC and talking to him about it. And I remember at one point I was like, I'm sorry I keep calling you with all these questions. Like you probably have a lot of other things to do. And he told me like, this is what I want people to do when they come here. Like I want them to ask me these questions. I really want them to be this involved. And there are many, many times where I text my mom and I'm like, I'm so glad I came to UCLA. This was the right decision. Just because I've loved so many of my professors, but Justin especially just makes each one of us feel so seen and feel very special and feel very supported. And I think that's really just so critical in law school because it is a stressful time in your life. And so to know that you have that support from faculty is I literally am so grateful and could not imagine myself anywhere else.
That is very sweet. Thank you for saying that. And some of that we got to put on a t-shirt. A couple people asked me if the recording will be sent out. Yes, we'll put this on the UCLA YouTube. Any other questions about jobs before we talk about the scholarships? And then we're nearly done. Okay, we'll talk about the scholarships. So the Capello Scholarship is for students with an AMTA background. It is exclusively for students with an AMTA background. So every year I'll get somebody saying, hey, I really want to do trial work, or I did moot court, and I'll say, terrific, you can be applying for the general scholarships at UCLA, but the Capello Scholarship is just for AMTA alums. And that's part of our commitment to build the trial program here, to honor people who, like all of you, are putting the work in to get really good at this because you love it, because you want to do this professionally, because it's the best, right? And here's how it works. So first you apply to the school. If you're admitted and you mention mock trial anywhere on your resume or your application anywhere, I'm going to get your application. I'll reach out to you and invite you to apply for the Capello Scholarship. It's actually a very easy application. It's a single Google form where you put in some information like how many tournaments you do, how many times you get to perform as a lawyer, any awards, what do you want to do professionally, and we really love seeing video. The reason I emphasize the video is I think there's a lot of you who have incredible mock trial resumes, awards, tournament wins, leadership at programs that are competing nationally, but some of you don't have that. Not because you're not talented, not because you don't have the ability to do it, but perhaps because you haven't had the opportunity and the resources. It's one thing to go to a school where you've got tons of coaches and money and teammates and a history of success. It's another to be part of a fledgling program, a student-run program. Maddie, I think you were mostly student-run in college. Rachel, I think you were mostly student-run in college. We didn't have a coach. We used to joke, I know this is going to make me sound very old, we used to joke that Tom Cruise is our coach because we'd watch A Few Good Men. And it's really important to me that we find people not just who've already had success, but have the ability to reach another level that just haven't had an opportunity for. So in the last 2 years alone, we've offered more than $2 million in Capello scholarships. Those are offers because some people didn't come. But if anything, that number is probably low. It's Maddie, I think it's probably closer to 2.5. But we really want to make this affordable and to put our money where our mouth is. We are invested in trial skills. Trials are some of the most important things in the legal system. We can all think of trials in the last few years that have literally had national consequences. And this is an important area to put our resources in because people who try cases change lives. We see that in big political cases. We see it in corporate cases. We see it in individual cases. One of my recent alums, she was a graduate the first year that I taught here. She became a public defender. At one point, she won 10 consecutive not guilty verdicts on behalf of her clients. That's unheard of in public defense. And she's now teaching here. So we really are committed to this. I'll pause there and see if people have questions, and you can ask about the topics we talked about or anything else about UCLA. But I'm going to say this before we take any other questions. I think that if I was going to make my closing argument for UCLA, it would be this. If you were looking at a national school like us or our peer schools, I think if you come here, you're going to end up getting the same job. I can't tell you how many students who either come here or decide not to end up getting the same jobs as each other, except you're going to have more fun here than anywhere else. You're going to have the best co-counsel you've ever had. You'll have the best coaching and most one-on-one coaching you've ever had. And I think it's going to be the formative part of your law school experience. And I'm hoping that after you come here, you'll come back and coach here because we've developed a family. And if this is something you want to be part of, talk to me on the Zoom. I'm happy to talk to people as they apply because we want to build that family. So I'll pause there. What questions can we answer? David?
Well, I think I didn't hear y'all's answers to Michelle's question about the commitment for the trial advocacy.
David, I'm having trouble hearing you. Any questions?
Hey, I think he was I think I heard my name in his thing. I think he was referencing my question I put in the chat a bit ago, just wondering about the time commitment for trial advocacy compared to like AMPTA mock trial.
I am so glad you asked that. So this is the one that people have a hard time believing because they see our results and they're like, you must practice nonstop. If you were competing at a high level in college, my guess is you will practice less often here. You might say, how is that possible? The time commitment is less intense in law school because of the nature of the competition. In college, you have the same case year round. So as soon as the tournament is done, you have to go back and edit your stuff and you're back competing again. And the other thing in college, and this is what takes so much time, is that the witnesses change from trial to trial. So think about how many crosses you have to know to be on one side as a lawyer, and how many crosses you have to know if you're going to be two sides as a lawyer. Maddie, you just competed this weekend at the Tournament of Champions. How many crosses did you have to know?
One cross.
How many directs did you have to know?
Two directs.
Two direct. Oh, one is a witness, one is a lawyer.
Yes.
Right. You got me. So Maddie's a witness on one side, one direct. She's an attorney on the other side, one direct, one cross, and her closing. And not having to do all those backups also makes it easier to do the speeches because you know who's going to be called. And you might think, well, that gets boring if it's the same trial every time, except you're never using the same case more than once because after that competition, it's another one, right? So Maddie's already done 2 competitions this semester. She did one that was a shark attack case when we competed in San Diego, and this one was a personal injury case in Los Angeles. Rachel, you did a negligence case last month, and now you have a insider trading criminal case coming up in New York. Bottom line is, because the cases don't have backup witnesses, we don't meet or need to meet an insane number of times. Our standard practice schedule, twice a week, 2 hours each. Now, obviously, as the competition gets closer, we'll add some scrimmages, we'll do some one-on-ones. But the follow-up question I always get to that is, are we able to do other things in law school? And the answer is yes. Every year, we have people on the trial team and law review, trial team and moot court, trial team and student organizations, leadership positions, students with trial team and externships or part-time jobs or research assistant positions. I don't think there's anybody on our team who does exclusively this, unless that's really all they want to do. Or maybe they want to do this in Dungeons and Dragons or the club soccer team or whatever. It is intense, but it is not the kind of intense time commitment that it is at an elite undergraduate program. Brian, and then AJ.
Hi. So this question relates a little bit to the topic you guys talked about of going to a national law school and having access to markets across the country. I was wondering, based on your experience and through your research, if there's anything that really differentiates the Los Angeles legal market from other markets, whether that's, work culture or certain practice groups that are much more prominent in LA versus other markets.
Great question. I think the biggest thing that differentiates the LA legal market compared to most others is it's just bigger, right? Other than one or two other legal markets, this is one of the biggest legal markets in the country, let alone one of the largest in the world. And so going to the number one ranked school in the second largest city in the United States is necessarily going to have really great job opportunities, right? In terms of what practice areas are particularly strong here at UCLA and in LA, entertainment law. I mean, if you want to do entertainment law, there is nowhere else to go. I mean, USC is very good. NYU is very good. We have the best entertainment law program in the country. Our environmental law program is phenomenal. We have great business law classes that we're known for here. I hear our trial program is pretty good. Our tax program is excellent. And so those are all reflected in the LA legal market. But you also see public interest opportunities here. LA is one of the most diverse cities in the world. That's reflected in our student body at UCLA, by the way. We have a really diverse group of students here, diverse in any way you might want to measure it. And that's also true of our trial team. But the reason I mentioned that in your question about jobs is that if you want to do public interest work here, if you want to represent underserved communities, if you want to help people who don't have resources, those jobs are available too in the public defender's office or other fellowships or public interest organizations. Does that answer the
Thank you so
question?
much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anthony, AJ.
Hey, how are y'all doing? I appreciate y'all hosting this meeting for tonight. My question is a bit more admissions focused, but I was wondering if you all think that it's a bit too cliche and maybe not the smartest tactic to center your personal statement around your involvement in your mock trial program.
So I'm going to do something the lawyer should never do under examination. I'm going to ask a question I don't know the answer to. Rachel, Maddie, did you talk about mock trial at all in your applications?
I did not center my personal statement on it, nor my diversity statement. I think UCLA has a why UCLA, and I mentioned it there. But I think that's the extent to which I did.
Maddie?
I didn't in my personal statement, but I did like UCLA's programmatic contribution essay, and I talked about mock trial there and then did similar for any other schools I was applying to with a trial program. So I centered my school specific essays around it.
I guess my advice, Anthony, is the same for this as I would be for any topic. There's no topic that's bad if you do it well. So if you write the story of like, I was standing up to give my opening and I was nervous, but I came through under the bright lights and we won the round and we advanced to orcs. Like, I think that essay is probably not great because it is a little bit standard. But if you tell a story that is individual, it's specific, it's sincere, and it's well written, I think you can write about mock trial or cross-country trip or whatever, as long as you're connecting it to what you're doing professionally and it shows your personality and who you are. So if that's mock trial, great. I've read some really great mock trial personal statements. I've also read some less great ones. In fact, somebody in the chat right now sent me a personal statement to look at. He wrote a great personal statement about mock trial, and I can't wait to see his application. Luke, your hand's up.
Hi, Justin. Hi, Rachel. It's nice to meet you. And Maddie, I miss you at UCSB. But the question I have is about the content and case materials, I guess, for trial, because I have heard in law school that sometimes it's not as balanced. Sometimes that AMTA cases feel more balanced given the facts, and sometimes defense or plaintiff or prosecution in law school is just like a Hail Mary, or sometimes it feels that way. So I guess I just kind of wanted to hear, like, is that true?
Yeah, I think that is true. I think that there are some things that are better about law school competition and some things that are worse. One thing that's better, the judging's way better in law school because they're real lawyers. That doesn't mean every lawyer gets it right, but you're way more likely to see agreement. You're not going to see a lot of plus 27 minus ones in law school the way you will in college because people are coming from the same professional background. I think the fact patterns are a little more realistic, but I think that the case balance is often not as good. And part of that's because if you're only trying the case at one tournament, if it's imbalanced, okay, well, too bad. Now we found out the tournament's over. Whereas in AMTA, if the case is imbalanced in October, they can fix it by December. They can certainly fix it by regionals. So I think that's part of it. But I can't help but notice that despite the case balance, national final round the last few years has been UCLA versus UCLA. So even when prosecution's only winning 35%, the team in Westwood has been able to win just enough to get to the final. So I don't know. Maybe it's not all about the case balance, Luke.
That's true. Thank you for answering my question. I was just curious.
Sure. Benson, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was sort of wondering about the earlier point about applications. I think Rachel and Maddie both talked about. Um, if it's not in your personal statement, and it's not in your diversity statement, not in those essays, and let's say it's just like a line on your resume, or let's say your coach is writing a recommendation letter, how do you avoid, I guess I'm not sure how rational this fear is, avoid underselling mock trial, since it is a huge part of at least my reason for going to law school, and a huge part of my college experience as well. How do you avoid underselling that?
You make sure it's more than a line in your resume, right? So here are some ways. It can be part of your personal statement. It can be part of your diversity statement or your why UCLA or why whatever school statement. It can be the substance of a recommendation letter from your coach. It can also be a section on your resume, right? I would encourage everybody, and I said this at our first Zoom informational meeting back a month ago, to be specific. Don't say learned rules of evidence and performed in courtroom. Say tried 25 mock trials in 6 different tournaments with this number of rounds as a lawyer. Talk about the awards that you won and the type of cases you tried. Make it specific, because if you do that and you devote a few bullet points, not just did mock trial, but talk about the leadership and what you actually did and accomplished, that signals to the admissions officer that this is important to you. Does that make sense?
I'm actually updating my resume right now.
Outstanding work. Let's see, I'm checking the chat. Any other questions?
I can give my brief closing argument for why UCLA and why us, that was passed down to me when I was in your shoes. A very wise UCLA trial team alum, Michaela, who was in my Quinn interview and now I work with, or will be my future colleague, bluntly told me, if you are looking at top law schools and you loved AMTA, you have no choice but to come to UCLA Law and join the trial team. And that has been so true in my experience. There is no other school that has the academic offerings and rigor that we have, and the coursework and all the other programs, in addition to like the best trial program in history. And the opportunity to learn from our faculty is just absolutely unparalleled. I think for any of you who, this was my story, AMTA was like, I was part of a student run program. I did not make it to Nats. Like, we were really scrappy and it was just a fun time that I loved. But I didn't have much success in it. And when I was thinking about law school, I was like undervaluing AMTA and mock trial because I thought, well, so many schools don't have it and I had fun, but I don't really know. But I always loved it. And I will say that you should follow your gut because your joy and what brings you joy is so important in law school and so important for your career. And this community and team has just completely shaped my law school experience and made it as wonderful as it is. And so if you love AMTA, like, you will love the trial team. And think about that as you're going into law school, even though so many schools don't have it. Like, UCLA is the intersection of trial ad and a top school and all these extracurricular programs and a great legal market in a great city. And so if that is compelling to you, as Michaela would say, like, you have no choice. But I've really loved UCLA, and it's all been true, and it's all come to fruition for me. So, oh, and the last part of my closing is, a huge part of UCLA is Professor Bernstein. Like, there is no comparison. And basically, what pushed me over the edge to choose UCLA was the opportunity to study with him. And it has been just the absolute best experience and made me the advocate that I always wanted to be. So I have to sell that too. But Yes, yes, that is my closing argument.
Manny, I won't put you on the spot, but is there anything you want to add? And if you mention my name, I'm gonna mute you.
Like, then perhaps I will stand by my previous statement about how special redacted makes you feel as a student here.
That's very sweet. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm gonna say my email address because if anybody is interested in applying, I'm happy to chat. It's bernstein@law.ucla.edu. Again, bernstein@law.ucla.edu. Happy to chat about admissions before you apply, after you apply. I will just give you this suggestion. If you want any help with the admissions process, I strongly suggest you reach out to me before or right as you apply, because it's much harder for me to sort of have an impact with admissions and the admissions decision if it's after you've already gotten the decision. So I'll be specific. Sometimes people reach out to me after they've been waitlisted. That is not as helpful because once somebody's gotten a waitlist, it's harder for me to have an impact. But it's much easier for me to reach out to admissions and recommend people with AMPTA backgrounds if they reach out to me ahead of time. So somebody asked me to put my email in the chat. I'll do that. And I'll say it again for everybody listening. It's Bernstein, that's BERNSTEIN at law.ucla.edu. You can also find that on our website. And hope that you apply. Thanks, everybody. And Rachel, Maddie, thanks for doing this.